What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So if you've been subscribed to the page for a little bit of time, you know that I really like to get your guys' opinions, your guys' takes from time to time, especially in the form of hot takes. And considering that we just had such a big event go down in the trade deadline, I decided to ask you guys on my Instagram to submit your hot takes. MB on Hockey on Instagram. Go check it out, MB on Hockey. If you want to get featured on this, I have 16 that we're going to go through right now of some scorching hot takes, all centered around the trade deadline. This team potentially going on the playoffs. This team may be flopping with their new team. Oh, we're going to go through it. Let's go. Let's not waste any time. Up first from Nick. He says Dallas is going to get screwed on depth in 2 to 3 years, and Carolina is going to win the trade hands down. Let's start from the Dallas perspective. I understand maybe where you're coming from, the fact that they no longer really have much in their pipeline remaining. Maverick Bourque can still improve, as well as Emil Hemming maybe hitting their 2024 first-round pick, but he's not that great of a blue chip prospect. Where I got to disagree with you on it is the fact that they just still have most of their impact forwards are within their early or mid-20s. Jason Robertson's still 25 years old. Rupe Hintz is 27 or 28. Rantanen's 28, as well as Wyatt Johnston only being 21 years old. And when you look at the team right now, yes, Jamie Benn and Sagan aren't going to be around for much longer. Once they're off the books, that's going to be a net positive because Tyler Sagan's making $9.85 million. Jamie Benn's making $9.5 million. It'll stink once Matt Duchene potentially ages out and stops taking insanely cheap 1-year, $3 million deals. But they're going to have a lot of money to play with, considering two of their two worst contracts are coming up relatively soon. And we've seen with this team, they've been able to draft in the second round pickup steals like Jason Robertson and Logan Stankoven. While, yes, they maybe shortened their window, I thought that they had like an 8 to 10 year window if they kept Stankoven and just kept their first round picks. But no, they're still going to be a highly competitive team for at least the next 5 years, probably 6, maybe even 7. From a Carolina perspective, I understand that they have a far better prospect pool, so they're maybe thinking about it more long term. They're maybe going to be the better team in 2030, 2031, 2032, but for the next 3 to 4 years, I'd pretty easily hammer Dallas being the better team just because their core is still mostly in their mid-20s, and a lot of them are locked up on relatively team-friendly deals, but thanks for the submission. Russell says the Sens can win around maybe 2. When looking at the Ottawa Senators, looking like after last night, especially beating the Philadelphia Flyers and then the Columbus Blue Jackets lost, New York Rangers lost, they're looking like a likely playoff team. I'd say like 80% plus at this point. In terms of winning a playoff round, I think if they get matched up against like Florida or Tampa, they don't really stand much of a chance. Toronto, Washington, I could maybe see an upset. I don't really love picking like relatively fresh teams, a team in their first, a young core coming out and making the playoffs for the first time. I like to bet against them because the playoffs is such a different style of hockey. Now, granted, Ottawa is a very physical team, so I think that they will adjust maybe more so than some of the skilled teams that we've just seen get washed as soon as they make the playoffs. I could maybe see around 2 rounds. 2 rounds, I just can't see out of Ottawa. 1 round would be an absolute. Well, just making the playoffs is a success of a season. But if they somehow pull off an upset, that would be a smashing success. 2 rounds, I can't see it happening. I'm sorry to my Ottawa faithful. Next up, Boston makes the playoffs and Marchand flops from Carl Knott 17. This would be wild. I've been looking at the Boston Bruins. Big win last night against the Florida Panthers. I'd still put their playoff odds at like 12%. They're in the mix, considering, again, Rangers, Jackets all lost last night. It's not impossible, and they really played a cohesive team game last night. Swayman will have to go nuclear, so I don't see it happening. In terms of Marchand flopping, there is serious injury risk, although he was practicing in a full contact jersey going full speed, so maybe he was beefing up that injury a little bit too much to the Boston Bruins so that they would trade him. It's a bold take. It's a hot take. These are hot takes. So obviously I disagree. I think Marchand's going to be a great fit on Florida, but I could potentially see it happening. Next up from Alec, Marner signing for Calgary in free agency. That would be hilarious if he just prioritizes the most amount of money possible, sign some kind of 7-year deal at $13.75 million. I think that would be a horrible deal. I'm not going to lie. When looking at Calgary, they should not be that aggressive. They're still thinking long-term, 2 to 3 years away from actually contending at a high level with the amount of picks and prospects that they do have. They should not be in the Mitch Marner sweepstakes. I know it's juicy to bring in a kind of superstar, sell tickets, but no, don't get fooled. Dustin Wolf is carrying this team right now. They're not a serious threat come playoff time and most likely will not be next year as well. Nico says, Tampa didn't improve much. Back-to-back first-round exits. They only added some fourth-liners. Nico, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. And looking at Oliver Bjorkstrand, he has like 39 points in 63 games or something like that, a year removed from 59 points. He's a very effective middle sixer, second line right winger on a lot of teams. Yanni Gourde, the offense production isn't there quite to the level where it was in his first couple years in Seattle and definitely in Tampa Bay. Still a very effective third liner. Tampa really just needed depth. They didn't. Obviously, you would have loved to bring in a Mikko Rantanen or something crazy like that, but that was not feasible considering they didn't have any firsts or prospects to trade relative to a Dallas. But no, I think you're crazy for that. Could they be a first-round exit? Easily, because the Atlantic Division is such a war. If they don't win that division, they're at serious risk of losing in the first round. But this Tampa Bay team is by far the best team out of the last 3 years. They're way more balanced, way deeper. Swapping in McDonough for Sergachev, very good move. So I got to disagree with you pretty heavily on that one. Next up, Z Poirier, 45. Jets, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality will take them to the finals. I guess I could see an argument for this, considering last year they were a little bit more aggressive, getting guys like Toffoli and Monahan, giving up a first, second, and a third to do so. I still think that the Jets, the thing is, like, if Colorado just made like minor moves, if Dallas just made minor moves, just traded a first round pick for some impact forward, then I would maybe agree. They did so much to improve their team, though. They did so much. And again, they're going to win the division. So as a result, they're hopefully those two teams go beat themselves up and then they can win that second round series and then go on a deep cup run. But I think Winnipeg should have been a little bit more aggressive. Again, it's just what you saw in the Western Conference. Those teams went so nuclear that I'm a little bit disappointed. Yes, they added a very good fourth liner, third liner potentially, as well as Luke Schenn. But for a team like Winnipeg, where most of their core is between the ages of 27 to 31, you don't know how many more runs you're going to have, and especially with a market like Winnipeg, where your only real chance at acquiring top-end talent, besides drafting, obviously, is through trade. I thought he should have been a little bit more aggressive, and they have a plethora of prospects. I know you might have to keep those guys because they might be willing to re-sign because they drafted there, but I would have been more aggressive in terms of actually acquiring top-end guys. Next up, Jackson says, the Leafs won the Atlantic in trade deadline acquisitions. Not saying they'll beat Tampa Bay or Florida. I can see this argument considering they got two guys that they badly needed, a right-handed defenseman as well as a third-line center potentially, and they have them next year as well. When you look at a Tampa Bay, they went super aggressive but got no retention on Bjorkstrand. Meanwhile, Scott Laughton half retained next year as well as Carlo got like, I believe $600K retained about roughly. He's only at $3.5 million. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, Bjorkstrand, Gord could walk for nothing this offseason, as well as Florida. Seth Jones, there is some risk considering he's 30 years old and has 7 years left at $5 million, and Brad Marchand might not play for them or might re-aggravate some kind of injury. So I can see that argument. I disagree with it because I think that obviously Florida and Tampa's more so clearly fit needs and are more higher level players. But I do think Toronto did a very good job. They did, but they paid a lot. They did pay a lot to do so. 2 first-round picks, Fraser Midden and Nikita Gurbankin. Not saying I think Gurbankin and Midden are going to be studs, but I think they're going to be very effective bottom sixers throughout their career and cost-controlled, which is something that Toronto would obviously need down the stretch. So yeah, I think Toronto killed it. They're definitely close to those teams in terms of a deadline, but it's going to come down to their stars. Like, no shit there, but like, I don't think Scott Laughton or Brandon Carlo are going to be the reason why Toronto potentially wins a playoff series. They're going to definitely elevate the group in terms of the depth, but no real serious impact kind of guys. Next up, Cam City 3796 says the Rantanen contract will age poorly. And I think if he signs some kind of 8-year, $12.75, $13 million one, I think I can maybe see where you're coming from in terms of the fact that he was so lackluster in Carolina. But I think at $12 million, that's more than fair, considering what this guy did, the track record. Even without Nathan McKinnon, he had like 39 points in 29 games dating back to 2021. I believe that he was just shell-shocked in Carolina, still shocked that he was traded. As long as he's a 40-goal, 50-assist, 90-point guy consistently, it's going to be fine. Maybe the first year you wouldn't love that at $12 million, but as the cap continues to rise, I say this every goddamn video, $12 million is not going to be, he'll be the 15th highest paid player in 3 years. That's probably just the truth of it, considering guys are going to continue to get big bags. So yeah, $12 million, if it was a potential free agency deal where he got 7 years at $13.25, I agree. That is serious, not the $12 million, not serious money, but that would be a little bit potentially too much. But $12 million, he'd have to regress to like 35 goals, 45 assists, 80 points for it to be like a true disaster. I still think that at the minimum, he'll be around 40 goals, 90 points. I think he's most likely going to return to 45 goals 95 to 100 points, and in that case, well worth $12 million. But yeah, I definitely can see where you're coming from that he might not put up quite Colorado 105-point seasons. Next up, Gligati, 16. Hellebuck falls off a decent amount, and Vass keeps balling out. Vass ends up winning the Vezina. Well, Vass, I think he sent this in before Vass played last night, and he didn't play that good. I believe it at sub 900. Maybe it's possible just because Tampa Bay is going to be relying on Vasilevsky far more than Winnipeg is down the stretch. So maybe Vasilevsky eclipses him in games played, ends up playing like 64, 65 games played. Not saying it's going to happen. I'd say Hellebuck's 95% likely to win the Vezina at this point. Meanwhile, Connor Hellebuck is kind of just going to coast for the Winnipeg Jets because at this point they have the Central Division mostly locked up. Don't think it's going to happen, but yeah, Vasilevsky the past 2 months or so is really locked the hell in, and rightfully so is probably going to be a Vezina finalist. And it is why Tampa Bay is a serious threat going back to that prior one. Next up, Bradley. Florida is a first-round exit this year. Depends on if they can hold on to that divisional spot. I think if they play Tampa Bay in a first-round matchup because they finished second and third, I'm probably picking Tampa Bay, especially with Aaron Ekblad, although I don't think Aaron Ekblad is this absolute stud. Missing Aaron Ekblad for the first 2 games of a series will definitely impact it, even if they are playing a wildcard team. But yeah, it really comes down to who they play in the first round. If it is the Ottawa Senators or Columbus Blue Jackets, I expect them to wipe the floor with that team respectfully. But if they play Toronto, they could potentially lose to play Tampa Bay. I'm probably picking Tampa Bay. As you guys know, Tampa Bay is my Eastern Conference pick right now. Next up, Aiden X Cash says the Avs 2 to 4 year window after this trade is horrible, and they have to win it this year or it's over. I think that this is a little bit of hyperbole. I think that I had them at like a 5 to 6 year window heading into the season, midway through the season after they traded for Mackenzie Blackwood, who fit their core well. I agree that their 5 to 6 year window has definitely shrunk to more so 3 to 4 year, going out, trading a first round pick in Cal Ritchie, one of the best prospects in hockey, a top 50 prospect at least, for potentially one playoff run of Brock Nelson. The Charlie Coyle trade, you give up Middlestat, who fit your core a little bit, and you thought maybe you could rehab a second round pick in Will Zellers. I made a whole TikTok on that, how Will Zellers is dominating the USHL. He has 38 goals in 42 games. So yeah, they've gone ultra aggressive, but at the end of the day, to say that they don't have like their 2 to 4 year window is horrible, I think that's hyperbole, just because as long as McKinnon and McCarr is going to be 30 years old, I believe, in September, and McCarr is 26 years old, but McKinnon's still going to be an extremely top 5 player in the NHL, an extremely top 5. He's still going to be a top 5 player at like 33, 34 years old. So as long as they have McKinnon and McCarr, they're still going to be at least a threat in the playoffs. I agree. I think Dallas has a better future in terms of the next 4 to 5 years compared to a Colorado for sure after these moves from Colorado. They're pushing all their chips in the center of the table, and rightfully so, considering they had that underwhelming exit in 2023 to the Kraken and then lost to Dallas in 2024. They need to get this second Stanley Cup, but also other guys on the team are decently young. Lekkonen's like 27, 28. Nitrushkin's 28 or 29 years old. So they still have another 3 to 4 years. I think you got to pump the brakes on it. It's not like all in. It'll suck if they lose in the first round. That would be gutting, given the assets that they gave up. But it looks like they solved the goaltender issue, and Mackenzie Blackwood's still like 27 years old, and their 2 superstars are 26 and 29 and are top 5 players in the NHL. So they'll be somewhat fine, even if this might be their best shot with this core the next 4 years. I think that arguably could be true. Next up, Wyatt says Minnesota falls out of the playoff picture, and the Canucks and Blues take wild card 1 and wild card 2. So you're not even saying that the Calgary Flames make the playoffs. You're saying Minnesota falls out and the Blues come out of nowhere and take a spot as well. I think Minnesota is going to be fine. They've been playing about 500 hockey since Kaprizov went down yet again in early January. What was it? Got shut down for a prolonged period of time. But even if they play 500 hockey from this point out, they're at like a 59% points percentage. The wild card or the last team out of the wild card right now is at like 53% points percentage. So again, as long as the Blues don't go on some insane run, the Canucks lost last night to the Montreal Canadiens as well, they're going to be fine. I'm not saying it's impossible because, again, they have been playing pretty lackluster, but it will take crazy runs by those other teams in order for the Minnesota Wild to potentially miss the playoffs. Minnesota Wild's at like 94% playoff likelihood at this point. And they still have talent. It's not like their entire team's Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson at this point. Next up, the New Jersey Devils misses the playoffs. When looking at it, I was nervous heading into last night's matchup against the Columbus Blue Jackets. If you don't know, I made these punishments at the start of the season based on my most confident predictions. New Jersey, if they miss the playoffs, I have to spend 24 hours straight in downtown Newark. I know, it's a horrible proposition. It's by far the worst one that I laid out. Feel free to go check out my Instagram to see the other punishments. But yeah, heading into last night against Columbus, that was like, if they lost that game, it was going to be 65% likelihood that they made the playoffs. They took care of business. They're yet again above 80%, I'd say, to make the playoffs. Also, again, the Rangers lost last night as well, which really helps. So in looking at them, I think they're going to be fine in terms of making the playoffs. It's possible. But I mean, a guy like Cody Glass has really stepped up in terms of I thought that was not that good of a trade in terms of not like a massive overpayment, but a third round pick. They were kind of grasping at straws. He's been awesome. I think he has 2 or 3 points in 3 games. Looks like they're going to make the playoffs. They just got to play consistent hockey. Again, like the Minnesota Wild. Honestly, if they just play 50% points percentage hockey the rest of the way, they're probably going to make it. Lastly, we have something regarding the Vancouver Canucks from Oodster7. Not trading Boeser was the right decision. And I mean, we don't really have a verdict on Boeser at this point. If they end up signing him to what they originally offered, 5-year deal at $8 million, I can get on board with that. Boeser's 27 or 28 years old. Still an elite guy, not an elite, a good top 6 forward, good first line kind of guy when he actually has solid center play. But if he walks for nothing, there's still such a chance that if he walks for nothing, you look like an absolute idiot for not trading him for a first-round pick. So time will really tell on that. I still think I think I lean towards the bad decision because even if he re-signs that deal, I don't think he's going to flip a switch, or Vancouver's entire forward core is going to flip a switch and they're going to become elite all of a sudden again. I think you probably should have moved off him and look towards more of a retool instead of commit to a 28-year-old such a long-term deal. But let me know in the comments. Those are all of your hot takes. Not all of your hot takes, but the ones that I chose. Follow the Instagram so you can potentially be featured down the line. Thank you guys so much for submitting. Thank you guys for getting me to 40K on YouTube as well as 40K on Instagram, 14K on YouTube. Love you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.